affiliated hospital should one be working in India in order to get a visa and in order to get a book?
Well, if you're working in a 50-bedded hospital, that's looked at. They look at that very carefully. They prefer that you were in a bigger hospital because there are more services, there are more doctors, there are more people to supervise you, so therefore you learn more. So 200 to, we have nurses who work in 100, 200, 1,000 beds. But certainly 50 beds is too small a hospital. Now, if that's just one part of your experience, that's fine. But if it were the only experience you had, then that's not fine. So, you may work in a 1,000-bed hospital, then you may go to a 50-bed hospital because it's close to home or something, then that's probably okay. But we do look at the number of beds ourselves because we have to justify your selection to the employer. And the employer, as soon as there's a problem with you when you're at work, guess who they ring first? They ring us. They said, "We've got a problem, come and fix it."
So, but it's a good thing. We've had cases where, the hospital has said, this nurse is not fit enough, you've given her the nurse, we're not happy with her, she has some problems, and then Louis and he will go meet the nurse separately, meet the hospital management separately, find out the problems from both the sides, find out a via-media solution, and then tell the nurse, this is what is expected of you, tell the management, this is why it happened, and they sort out the issue.
Well, I'll give you one example. We put 2 nurses into a little town called Berry, which is south of Sydney, with one of the major employers. And the employer calls up and said these nurses are having problems managing the assistant nurses. So Louise and I went down there, and then we sent Louise for 2 days, and she just sat by their side and watched everything they did on that shift. And what she learnt was, in that case, was that they weren't the problem. The problem was that it was a new facility just been opened. They had a lot of graduate nurses, Australian graduate nurses, who didn't have a clue what they were doing. There was only one manager, so she was running around solving all these problems with these graduate nurses, and she wasn't able to help our nurses, and our nurses, in fact, were doing a good job. And after that, she gave a report to management, then sat down with management, and they understood the situation. They then got promoted. 6 months later, they got promoted to another new facility because they didn't have any experienced nurses. Our nurses had a couple of years' experience. So that was a case where the employer was completely wrong. Now, there are other cases where one of the biggest complaints is time management. They're not doing things fast enough. So again, Louise goes there and sits there, works with that nurse. And Louise is very experienced, and in one shift she can figure out what's wrong, who's wrong, and how to fix it. So we then sit down with management and with the nurse and say, look, these are the things you're doing well, these are the things you need to do better, and we get the management to work with her when we leave. And then we come back a couple of months later. And we don't have to do that often, but the fact is that we do that because if we don't do that, the employers will get frustrated and will end up terminating the nurse, and sometimes for no reason other than their own mistakes.
Yes.
Is there any benefit with the masters which we have done in India, masters in nursing?
Well, it's a benefit in that you have more experience and knowledge, but you don't get paid anything more at this stage unless you do a master's in Australia. Then you will get paid more. But the main objective for you is to get there and learn the Australian way of nursing, and then that master's will help you if you decide to do another degree later on. So I never discourage people from doing extra education because I've done it. And I've done 13 years of university, so I believe in it, and so does most of the employers.
So it doesn't help in salary as such, but it will help you in... You are going there and you will be hired by hospitals for bedside nursing. Period. If you think that, I have done masters and they'll put me on a teaching job, no. Certainly not at this stage. Maybe after a couple of years, and maybe after you acquire an Australian qualification, you can then switch over. But not initially when you go, you're going for bedside nursing.